welcome to today's episode. I'm Dena Adams, your host, and today we are talking with Orly Amor, and I'm so honored to have you here. I recently met Orly, and if you were on with us on the YouTube channel, you kind of heard a little bit about how we met. But one of the things I just love about Orly is her, what's the word I want to use? Not free-spiritedness. It's the acceptance no matter what. Right? You have this, just come as you are. I'm going to accept you and love you and make you feel good all at once. And we'll just figure it all out together. And I just absolutely love that. And it just made sense to have Orly come on here today and share with you guys her story, share with you who she is and what she does. I feel like there's going to be some people who are truly going to resonate with her on their journey and be like, oh, I may not be ready for that, but I will be one day. There's going to be some of you that are like, I've been trying to find that person to help me with that, and I've already invested so much money. And you're going to be like, oh, Orly's the one that's going to help me. She's the game changer, right? That's how I feel people are going to resonate with you on this podcast. So, Orly, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Will you go ahead and please share who you are, what you do, who you serve, and all that goodness?
Well, and I'm a business coach for public speakers, and the only one that guarantees $150K in their first year of public speaking. I really just teach the business of how to get booked. I do not teach them to speak, but I do help with that if needed. And who I serve is usually speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs. Because I believe that the best marketing for a business is public speaking, because it is one-to-many instead of one-on-one, which is exhausting. And so it is one of the best things since word of mouth. So word of mouth is good. This is a little better.
I love that. So I want to touch on this first because I am a business coach as well. Excuse me. And amongst other things that I do as a business sidekick, but I would love for you to share with people before we get into your story. How is it? I have a hard time with this. I do not do this. I do not do this in my business. And I'm hoping I can learn something on this today. How is it you can guarantee people are going to make $150,000 in their first year as a public speaker?
That question. Thank you so much for asking it. All right. So I get this a lot, right? And so I believe that in each business, we got to learn the business, right? We got to know what the industry values are. What are, who are, our competitors, all our marketing strategy, all that is done with our business, right? Whatever business you're in. And in public speaking, there is also a standard. Now, I'm going to share this with you because you asked that question. I'm going to ask you a question instead so everybody can resonate with this.
Yes.
If I find you a job at McDonald's, can I guarantee they'll give you at least minimum wage on your first day?
Yes.
Of course I can, because that's the law, right?
Right.
They have to give you at least minimum wage. If they give you more, God bless, right?
Right.
When public speaking, $150K is minimum wage. I can guarantee minimum wage in this industry. It's minimum wage. If you don't make $150K, it's a hobby. It's not even a career. And if you think about it, if you get 60 gigs a year, which is 3 times a week to speak, right? At 2,500, you're at 150K. If you get 30 gigs a year at 5,000, that's 150K. 30 gigs in 1 year, I speak at least 8 to 12 times a month. I don't know. Do the math. But it's minimum wage.
Okay. I have talked with many people who have said, you should be a speaker, you should do all these things. And I speak for free. I don't
hear that.
I know you don't. I knew you were going to cringe at that.
Okay,
I've
go ahead.
spoken for free. I've been on panels. I've even put together and ran a live event for free. Everything was donated. Everybody was donated. The facility was donated, everything. And for me, I thought, oh, I want to do Toastmasters. I want to learn how to speak. And what I learned about myself was if I tried to do a formal speech, I lose my authenticity because I am a in the moment speaker. I know my bullet points, but I am an intuitive speaker and I pray beforehand and I trust God to bring out of me what needs to be said. If you listen to some pastors, they'll say, I had a plan for today, but we haven't even gotten to it yet because this is where I felt guided. And so I refrained from believing I was valuable as a speaker to get paid because I don't have a Toastmasters thing behind my, I didn't go and do that. I
Worst thing you get
formal speaking, anything, any training. And when I was in high school, we had to take speech. And I had these incredible panic attacks. I would turn beet red, start sweating and shaking. I literally just wanted to cry and throw up. It was the hardest thing for me, but put me in a drama class, I can sit and act and do my thing. I can shut out the whole world. And so hearing you say minimum wage for speaking is $150,000. And I've been speaking internationally for years, virtually for all these places, showing up in other coaches' programs to teach and educate and speak and all these things. And you're saying this is minimum wage. I'm like, I could have been making $150,000 a year.
Can I answer that? Can I answer that? Yeah. Well, three things that you said. First of all, Toastmasters, it's a good way to start if you want, but it just gives you some parameters because you do need them if you want to be a $10,000 speaker, right? Some of it, not all of it. But I'm gonna share a couple of things with you. One, we know speaking is actually the number one fear before death. People prefer dying than, speaking. Got it. Other thing is that I need you to know that I have no filter between my brain and my mouth. So I'm going to speak straight out. Okay.
Please do. I love that about you too, by the way. I love that. So go for it.
It's horrible. But you know what? A lot of people come to me and they say, well, you know what? I speak for free because I want exposure. And my answer to that is that you want exposure? Go outside. The sun is going to give you plenty. I'm sorry, but that's my answer. Okay. And now so sorry. Okay.
No, I love that. That puts it in perspective.
Right. And the other thing that I want you to know and your audience as well, I don't care how old you are and what you've been through and so on. But guess what? Whatever it is, until this moment, you've paid for it. You've paid for it with money, education, blood, sweat, tears, aggravation, ups and downs, experiences. All of that is your intellectual property. Why would you give it away? That's my question. The value that you bring is not just one or two things. When I ask for people to pay me, I tell them, you're not paying me for what I'm going to give you and sustain you and be a friend for life. Because people who hire me, I give them my condolences in advance before they hire me. I'm like, my condolences in advance. If you do decide to work with me, you have me for life. There is nothing else I have to sell to you. This is one thing and that's it. And we're friends for life. And I'm going to hold your hand until you make the money. But what I mean by that is that people need to know that there is a lot to be done in this industry. And if you don't understand it, and if you give your intellectual property away, which I don't agree with, but hey, you know what? You want to do it. I'm not going to hold you back. But understand that you're giving your intellectual property. So when I tell people to pay me, I don't tell them to pay me for what I give them and hold their hand to do. I tell them it's about my 25 years of public speaking full time that you're paying for my experience to get you from my 12-hour days to 1 hour a day. That's what I ask my clients to do. 1 hour a day to get $150K a year. I don't know about you, but that's a no-brainer sometimes, And so that's my point to you is that your intellectual property should be paid for.
That's fantastic. I'm speechless, honestly. That's not an easy thing to do for me. It just really got my brain thinking about some things, and there was some conviction there. And I think that the one question I'm coming back to right now that I've heard in my head like 3 times since you said what you did is I'm a coach. I'm an author. I'm a consultant, and I want to do speaking. You're talking about intellectual property, and I may charge this over here as a coach or consultant or whatever. And now I'm hearing I can make however much speaking, and my mind goes into, and I feel like I hear like thousands of people behind me going, yeah, me too. I want to know the answer to that question. How do you take what you're, and this might be something that's, not something you can answer here. It might be part of a program or something,
Absolutely.
but if I want to take my intellectual property and get paid to speak, how do you determine what you speak on versus how you get, because I'm getting paid over here to do this thing, but I have a speech I want to give and I want to get paid for it. How do you be able to separate the right things into that speech that you're going to get paid for, so it maybe is that introduction into you so people will want to work with you more, versus feeling like you're just saying the same thing in your coaching program to what you're saying on stage?
Oh, wow. Great question. Absolutely. And I will share that with you. So I'm going to share with you 3 statistics first, but I'm going to tell you that facts tell, but stories sell. And you know that too.
Yes. Yes.
So when you bring the story, your story, nobody can tell your story like you can. That's number one, right? So here are some statistics for you. There are 64,000 events a day in America alone, Canada and the United States, that pay speakers. Yet most speakers are broke or they're making less than 100 grand a year. Okay. So that's first statistic. Second statistic, right now, out of all the speakers in the world, right? So we're going to get the industry first. Industry first is lacking right now, diversity, variety, and women speakers. Women speakers are lacking in this industry right now. And so what I'm going to tell you is that out of all the speakers in the world, I'll come back to that sentence, women are only 1.9% of all the speakers in the world. Oh, wow. Your reaction is exactly what I get out of 10 times. Okay. Now, here's the last statistic. Right now in the industry, in the world industry, right? We are 1 million speakers short and 1 million coaches short.
Repeat that again and explain a little bit more what you mean.
Out of the industry, the whole industry of public speaking and coaching, and this is not my numbers, this is the brokerage of public speaking and coaching industry statistics. We are 1 million speakers short in the world and 1 million coaches short in the world. During the pandemic, a lot of people fell off the face of the earth because a lot of people were investing their time, energy, and money on things like starting a podcast, writing a book, getting in their website, all of that instead of getting booked as a speaker. My own email and website, Orly at orlyamor.com and orlyamor.com have been down for 7 months. I got hacked, blah, blah, blah. Does not matter. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah. Great. Lesson learned. But it didn't stop me from getting booked as a speaker, from doing what I need to do. So your website is not necessary. A book is not necessary. Your website, like your a podcast right now, not necessary. Yes, things that you might want to do in the future when you have the money, blah, blah, blah. But getting paid as a speaker is number one to me anyway. And through public speaking, you get coaching clients, you get other clients, consulting clients, all of that. Because when you're speaking your authentic self, either how you got started or what's going on in your world, as far as people lacking, I love what you said to me earlier, the sidekick as a business owner, right? Everybody needs a sidekick. It reminds me when I used to be, a business coach for CEOs and CFOs of Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. I used to call myself the checkup from the neck up for CEOs, right? And so it is, so I get what you do, but at the same time, you don't have to give them the store, which is how you proceed. You can just, number one problem in business is not having someone to have as a balance, what do you call that? A bounce board, a board, like
a sounding board.
Yeah, exactly. So you need one. You always need one, whether it's your mentors, your coaches, your friends. I don't use my friends, but those who are in business, I might talk to them because I trust them, like them, right? So this is what you need to know about the industry. That's what's going on right now.
That's incredible. I will say I've talked with people over the years who teach people to speak, encourage them to get speaking events, tell them, through PR, we can get you what you need to speak. But I've never had anyone say, I can guarantee you're going to make this amount of money speaking if you can commit to an hour a day.
Yeah, pretty much. After I give you everything, after you the program, I build it all for you. I position you in the industry. So you don't have to think a lot. You just have to follow the process, right? If the formula works, don't change it. It's working. It worked for me. I have stories about it. So that's one of the stories that I want to tell. But that's the point. The point here. And you know what? You said something very, very interesting and very poignant. It's not only about, learning how to do something. It's implementation, right? 1 hour is really all it takes. And people who waste time on it, or they're probably wasting a lot more time on something else that doesn't produce money, right? And so we got to remember that. And we are a disservice by not charging for our business. So I'd like to say, event planners, you said about speaking. You said, that's why I needed to talk it out. When you said, I'm not teaching people how to speak because, like I said earlier, you can only tell your story. Nobody can tell your story. But at the same time, a lot of people think that because they don't have a good stage presence or that they don't have a good message, that they're not going to get hired. So I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think you're a good speaker? And for all of you out there listening, if you are passionate about anything, you're a good speaker. Because I'm sure that if you saw a good movie, you'll go to your friends and say, oh my God, you got to see this movie. So obviously you are a good speaker. Secondly, do you have a message that you want to share with the world? And if the answer to that is yes, and that again is because of passion, something happened to you and you said, you know what, I learned this thing. It doesn't have to be a boohoo story, but if it is a story of any kind, then somebody can relate to it. And so you're a good speaker and you have a good message. Now I'm going to ask you the question that I was going to ask. Which one of the two do you think event planners are most interested in? Your delivery of the speech, your message, or both? You have an out. So your message, your delivery, or both?
I'd say event planners are interested in, I want to say both, but I feel like if I had to pick which one was most important to them, it would be the message because they want speakers who can connect to their audience.
Okay. What if I told you neither? It was a trick question. And I did, neither. Not at all. Don't care. Don't care about your website. Don't care about if you have a book. Don't care if you have a message. Don't care if you're a good speaker or not. Listen, if you're not a good speaker, they're not going to call you back. No big deal. They're
not going to be like, we want to refund your speech.
Never. But they won't call you back. We agree.
Right. They won't call you back to speak again.
Right. No big deal. There's 64,000 other ones a day. You're not going to lack any opportunity here. You know what I'm saying? But what they do care about is you showing up on time and finishing on time.
Punctuality.
10 times more important than anything else you're thinking about, right? So a lot of speakers come to me and say, well, what's the topic of interest these days? There is none. One of my clients who speaks on diversity and inclusion just got hired for a tourism convention.
See, that's what I will say. That's one of the things that has held me back from speaking at events is what I'm going to talk about going to empower, inspire, and positively impact the audience. Because for me, I feel like if I'm speaking to an audience, I don't want to be noise.
Yeah.
And so this just made me realize, yes, I've passed up some speaking opportunities. They were all free speaking opportunities. And now I'm really encouraged to be like, maybe there's something to me considering speaking and, adding that into my repertoire, because I've spoken for free. I have gotten paid for some events, because that was the model they were using. And I think this conversation has allowed me to shift my thinking around speaking, because people will tell you, oh, do at least your first 100 speeches for free. I've heard that from so many people who are speaking coaches, because that's how they did it. That's how they broke into the industry. And hearing you say this, one, makes me sad for all the millions of people that are being told to do it all for free, because it's the only way you're going to break into the industry. And two, because the rest of us who aren't speaking, a lot of us aren't speaking because it doesn't feel right. Even though speaking for free is a great way to give back, that's not our calling to do that. We're not called to do that. And we're running a business. And, so this is very encouraging to me. And I have lots of things going through my head, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you mentioned, is like, everybody's being told to speak for free at least 100 times. You should practice your speech. You should, have some kind of knowledge of your speech, a little more fluent, or, like making sure that you stay on time. You got to be a little bit more, organized,
Mm-hmm.
We do that in our speaker training bootcamp, speakers training bootcamp. You can go to the website, but we do that. We show people how to do that. And how to be able to craft a 3-minute speech, which is the hardest one to get, and turn it into a 90-minute speech, so that people are able to have a formula to just use for any time they have to speak. And so I'm going to tell you this, the people that, and this is happening I've been a full-time speaker for 25 years. I actually just celebrated 25 years last June.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I love this industry. I adore this industry, but it has shifted a few times, right? And so people who teach others to have a signature speech, that's old school. That's 20 years ago. People who say you got to have a book to get paid as a speaker, so old school. That's 10 years ago. I'm going to save you all some money here, money and time. Do not fill out any applications, forms, or abstracts. Do not fill them out. Applications, forms, or abstracts at all. Do not fill those out, because I want you to think about it first, right? If we are business owners or business professionals, whatever it is that you call yourself, what is the time commitment that you have for this type of filling out forms, abstracts, and applications? A form takes about 2 minutes, because it's just your first name, last name, email, phone number, and probably just the title of your speech or something about you. An application is a full-blown thing where they have a few questions, and an abstract takes about an hour. So application about a half hour, an abstract about an hour. What if I told you there's nobody at the other end reading them? So now you wasted all that time and money, because to me, time is money.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. So that's number one of the things that I want to just share. The other thing that you mentioned is not getting paid, right? But I believe money is energy, and it needs to be exchanged.
Yes.
So you know what? We are all coaches or entrepreneurs. Well, we get paid for what we do, no matter what it is, right? That's how we survive. Money needs to be exchanged. And so if you're thinking about it, okay, let me do it for free, then you're telling the universe also, well, you know what? Just bring me more free stuff, right? I mean, and then I'll never make money. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to go broke, right? What I shared with my clients is making sure that they get booked and paid. No more freebies. Because the people that only get things for free are all playing in the same sandbox. You don't want to be in that sandbox. I don't know how many times people said to me, come and speak at NSA, no National Speakers Association. I'm like, first of all, it's just an association. And the people that are in there who are speakers don't make more than $30,000 a year speaking. They're just there to hang out. And I just don't have that time. Period, right? And so I beg people to concentrate on their craft, whatever it is that they do and their messaging, and get it out there also, because instead of doing the one-on-one coaching, they can do group coaching, or they can get one-on-one coaching that is lucrative. And there's a lot of money in this business, by the way. It's $100 billion a year industry. And the brokerage firm said that by the end of 2022, that's where we are, it's going to grow by $13.2 billion. I don't know about you, but I like a piece of that pie, which I'm getting, by the way. But you know what I mean? It's like everybody should get a piece of that pie. There's a lot of money there.
And I think that's where we have to make a decision. We have to make a decision as entrepreneurs where we want to go next year. Right. In my membership, we're getting ready to, I do a planning session with them every month. I'm live in my membership with my people. So outside of our implementation, our getting shit done calls that we do, because I'm all about implementation and taking action.
Sure.
We're going to be planning and mapping out what are we doing for the next year.
Yeah.
And I thought I had it all ready to go. I thought I was ready. I thought I had my plan, and I'm literally in this moment is making me reevaluate what is important to me between my podcast, my YouTube channel, my membership, my one-on-one clients, writing my book. Let me rephrase that. Restructuring and re-releasing my book. All the projects I have in my head, and making $150,000 as a speaker would give me what I need to pay people to do some of the tedious tasks that I was getting ready to plan to put a ton of time and effort into. And getting paid to speak would shift my exposure to the one-on-one clients that I want. I know a lot of people don't want one-on-one clients. They get tired and burnt out. And that's fine. I don't mind having one-on-one clients. I limit how many I'll work with at a time. And at the same time, it gives me the opportunity to grow into something else with them at some point, right? I think if we get stuck in, but this is my plan, and when we hear something that hits us and we don't reevaluate, we're doing a disservice to ourselves, and we're doing a disservice to our audience.
Yeah.
So I just love this. So just for the people on the podcast to know this, we were way off track. If you want to go hear the whole thing and what happened, you can go check out the YouTube channel. It was quite hilarious. We had a great time. We got started on the podcast really late. So Orly, if you're okay, we jump into the story.
I'm good. Yeah,
Perfect.
totally. I'm good. For as long as you want me, I'm here.
Oh, perfect.
I'm
Don't tell me that, because
Sarah's good with it. I had dinner. We're good.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do is I want to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
Orly has shared a ton of information, great statistics, jaw-dropping statistics for me personally. Shared some options to how to help get into the speaking industry, how to, a program to help craft your speech, what her guarantee is with her clients. But there's a story behind it. Right? Orly said she's been doing this for 25 years.
Right.
That's almost as long as I've been married, and a little bit longer than I've been a mom. So
you don't look that old. Oh my God.
Thank you.
I'm going to say I'm 55 years old just in case the math doesn't look it.
Oh,
you're a mom and married 22 years? Okay. What
about mom? Right? I've been a mom for 27 years.
Oh gosh. Okay.
and married for 21 with my husband for 22 at the time of this recording of this podcast. But when I hear you've been in this industry for 25 years, I can't, my first thought, because of the way I think, is the story behind it. You love this industry. You are passionate about this industry.
Sure.
So for me, and hopefully for my listeners, we want to say that in our industry in 25 years, we want to say, I've been here. I've made the money. I'm getting part of this pie. I'm positively impacting people. There's no one else in my lane, right? I'm cruising along and I'm positively impacting people without hesitation. And that's what I get from you. And so I would love for you to share your 1, 2, 3, whatever stories you want to share that talk about where you got started, how this happened, what you've had to go through personally to overcome things to make it not only into this industry before that, but then to be sustained in this industry for 25 years. So I'll give you the floor.
Oh, thank you. So there's a meme that I share with a lot of people, and it says, people who criticize your life don't know the price you paid to get there. And it's by Adler. I forget her first name, but it doesn't matter right now. But it's not my quote, but it is a quote. And it's so true, isn't it? Right? When people look at me at 25 years in the industry and they're like, oh my God, you're so successful. You're so this, you're so that. And then they say, well, you know what? It must be easy for you because you know how to do it. And I'm sure you get that too. And everybody that's listening is probably thinking the same thing. People just think I'm, all that in a bag of chips, right? And so I'm not all that, and I'm not a bag of chips, but I've always stayed authentic to who I am. And that's very important. People forget where they started. I don't forget where I started. And that's what I'm going to share with you right now. I started in property management. I was actually a janitor's wife in the beginning of my career. And I grew up in the industry of property management, and I became really, really good. I was in Canada. I was the youngest woman in Canada to receive the Businesswoman of the Year award at the age of 24. In a man's world, to receive that award was just unbelievable. And I still hold being the youngest to receive that award. So not the young, the only one to receive it, but definitely the youngest at that age. And the funny part was that, I was in property management for 25 years altogether because I started really young. And when I moved from Montreal, Canada, I moved to Florida. And after a few years of making my mark in property management, I also started speaking in property management. And I was just doing speaking all over. And then people said that they heard of me. And now I was traveling the country speaking on property management. It was kind of weird because I'm like, where did you hear of me? Oh, well, this one told me about you. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So you just don't know who's talking about you. That's the cool part about it. And I don't go out there, with the diva syndrome that says, oh, well, look at me. I am all that and I'm back at you. And so one of my friends who knows my personal story says to me one day, Orly, I need you to come and speak at this women's shelter I'm volunteering at. And I said, what? What do you want me to speak about? This was like a question mark. And she's like, no, I want you to come and speak. And I said, what, about property management? She's like, no, silly. I want you to come and tell your story. And I'm like, oh, no. Let me explain something to you. I said to her, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And so she said, oh, come on, Orly. And so I don't know about you guys, but if you do have an annoying friend, this was my annoying friend. Her name is Liz. And Liz called me every single day for 3 weeks. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? After 3 weeks, I said to her, okay, why me? There's other people that speak on this topic. Why me? She's like, well, you're like a social butterfly. Everywhere we go, people love you and just hug you. People who don't even know you hug you. And you're living a lifestyle that most people dream about. Just come and give these women hope. So I said, okay, well, how do I get you off my phone? Like, I'm still debating if to do this or not, right? And so she said, for you to say yes. I'm like, oh gosh, this one is not going to stop. So I finally said yes, and I hired a coach. And by the way, don't ever hire a coach that doesn't have a coach. You need to have a coach for many assets in the areas of your life. I have 4 coaches right now that are driving me crazy, but that's why you need coaches, because they push you out of your envelope. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I regressed. So I finally took a coach for my speech, my first motivational speech. How do I do that? How do I tell my story? I don't know how to do that. I've been speaking in the property management industry for a long time. Published books, etc., etc. Anyway, so now it's 3 months later, and I'm speaking at this women's shelter. There's about 170 people there, give or take. And after I got done speaking, there was not one dry eye in the place. And when I got off the stage, something happened that never happens in property management. So people were coming to me and hugging me, thanking me, crying on my shoulder. Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me hope. Thank you for sharing. All those thank yous and love, so much love. In property management, I was Miss Amor in our condo association. It's like, it's more questions about complaints than it is about love. And so I'm really taken aback by all this love. And so one lady came up to me and she was crying profusely. And we were trying to calm her down. So I said, honey, you need to calm down. She's like, no, you don't understand. I said, no, I do understand, sweetheart. You need to breathe. She was hyperventilating. I'm like, sweetheart, and so back and forth. No, you don't understand. Yes, I do understand. And back and forth we went until she yelled at me. She's like, no, you don't understand. I was so taken aback. I have goosebumps telling you this. And this happened 20 some years ago. And she takes out a piece of paper out of her pocket and she shows it to me. And she says, this is how I was going to kill myself this morning. In fact, I don't remember driving from my house to the shelter because you see here, that's not where I was going. But I heard you speak and I want to live. I just need you to show me.
I have chills so bad.
That was my pivotal point. I was crying. Everybody around us was crying. It was so moving that I didn't know what to do with it. This was my first speech. And so in my head, I didn't have, wow, this is cool. It was more like, wow, I just saved someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
That was what made me think, wait a minute. There's a sign here for you. I never felt fulfilled in property management, but this one was so emotional that when I was in my car, so if you read my book, the Mindset Mastery, which is the 12 powers we hold within, or if you read my book, Public Speakers, You're Not All That, 12 Reasons Why Event Planners Won't Hire You, which is a great book. In both books, the story exists of what happened with that shelter. And what happened that day from the beginning to the end, right? And this is basically my turning point. So it's very important, right? And in the car, so my friend Chris is with me, and in the car, he tells the story in my book. So what he tells as a story of what happened in the car coming out of the shelter is not what I'm going to share with you now. So you're getting dibs on what really happened. And so I'm driving the car and I'm crying and I'm saying, this is what I'm screaming in the car. Screw property management. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life, right? And I am just pissed. And I'm crying. And I'm like, I can't believe in my head, it was like, I can't believe I wasted this much time on people who don't even appreciate me, blah, 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 right? And so this was my pivotal point. And I was crying. And it was a BMW 745 Li. Just so you understand, it's an $80,000 car. And my friend Chris was like, over. You're going to because I was crying. And when I laugh, look, my cheeks go up and my eyes go up. So when I'm crying, it's and so I'm going to share my story with you in 18 seconds so you understand what happened. I was a beaten up child. I was molested 4 times before the age of 14. I was raped 3 times before the age of 22, twice gang raped, 9 months apart, left for dead. I was married to a very abusive husband, both mentally and physically. And as a result of that, I had 4 abortions and I gained a morbid amount of weight. I was 428 pounds at my heaviest. It's in my book. I am sharing this with you to let you know that no matter what your story, this is not a competition of stories. This is about sharing your story because you never know whose life you're going to change. I don't care if it's professionally, personally, it doesn't matter. Your story is still your story.
I'm in tears. I hear you say that. And a couple things happened in my head. Holy crap. I can't imagine what any of that must have felt like. Even knowing my own story, which some of those things are similar, I can't imagine. 2, you are so brave and courageous and just inspiring to so many people just for saying that and still being here today. And 3, the third thing that comes to mind is I've been trying to figure out how to tell my story. And there's so much in my story. I haven't been able to tell my story because it's all so important to me. I don't know how to tell my story. And you just showed me how to tell my story in 18 seconds.
Come to Speakers Training Bootcamp. I'll show you exactly how to do it. Okay, I'm just.
Oh, it's on my list. I already wrote it down. That's on my list for now. Like that's going to be part of my plan for next year. I have a gift of voice. That was something that, and I think I just had this conversation in a podcast previous to this. Was it the one previous or the one? I've been doing so many podcast recordings, can't remember, but we had a conversation in another podcast like this. What our gift is, when we find out what it is, it's very hard and convicting because it's what we've been condemned for most of our life. And I am someone who likes to speak truth and say it how it is. And I try to do it with a lot of love and passion and compassion. And people don't like to hear it because I'm also intuitive and empathic, and I tend to know things about people before they are ready to admit it themselves or before they've even become aware of it. And so they tell me that I'm completely crazy and nuts. And so as I'm listening to you share this story, and we'll get back to her story here in just a minute because it's way more powerful than what I'm saying, but it showed me just in this little brief moment, I have a belief that if anything I'm going to do well has to be hard. You just debunked that belief. It doesn't have to be hard. For me I'm a writer. I can write. I can sit and I can write. But I don't write like people expect you to write when you write a book or write all that kind of stuff. I tend to free write and don't really have a way to it. And people are like, how'd you write that? I'm like, it took me like 10 minutes. And they're like, it would take me like 2 hours to write that. We have to recognize our own giftings. And if you think that speaking is not one of them, like Orly mentioned earlier, if you can have an experience and tell somebody about it, you can speak.
Exactly.
We speak every day. We share our stories all the time. The only difference speaking, getting paid for it, is you're on a platform instead of sitting here in a coffee chat or sitting one-to-one with someone. And the potential for you to positively impact someone's world, to give them hope. I've had a similar experience where someone showed up to an event that I ran, and he was in that same space, believed he had no value. And he said, I saw this and I knew I had to come in to give myself one last chance to see if God was going to answer, if I even was meant to stay here. We never know who needs what we have to say. And the longer we keep it to ourselves, the harder it is for other people to find the story that God has put on this earth for them to hear, to help them be a story for somebody else. This is power. You changed so many things for me in like short few seconds. And I think that's another testament to we never know what someone on the other end of our voice needs. And I mentioned to you earlier that I've been trying to figure out, like, what do I say and what's the story? And should I even accept this speaking opportunity because I don't know if I have anything of value for their audience? When if I start focusing on my story and how it leads into what I do and who I serve, instead of trying to figure out what are all the business things I need to say, I'm going to be able to show up more authentically as myself. I'm not going to feel so stressed out about speaking. and I'm going to have a ton of confidence in what I'm sharing. And then I know the people that come to me that resonate with me are truly my people.
I tell people all the time, whatever I've been beaten for, punished for, judged for, and scolded for, I get paid for. Today I get paid for. It's your experience. Nobody can take that away from you. And there were lessons along the way. And if you're still here, then that means you have to share your story. I mean, the graveyard is full of stories and songs and plays and formulas and recipes that have never been shared. So the graveyard is full of that. Do we want to be there? Actually, that's my TEDx talk coming out. It's not to take your story to the grave, because you just never know whose life you're going to change. This is exactly my point. People need to get over their little fear of vulnerability and instead use that vulnerability to be authentic and to share, because you just never know. You just never know. And you were saying earlier, so what kind of audience would like to meet my message? So here is my answer to that. Because now you don't have to worry about the audience. Some will, some won't. Who cares who's next? Some people are not ready for your story, and some people are not ready for your message. But you had somebody that was ready for your message. He came. He didn't know what he was there for. I don't know how many times I heard that story of somebody just coming out of the crowd saying, I didn't know why my wife made me come here, but I know I need to talk to you, right? It's like,
Yeah,
it's really cool when you hear somebody say, I don't know what brought me here, but I said, yes, I followed my wife or I followed my husband. I didn't know that this is what I was going to learn about myself. And that opens up a whole can of worms for them. But then it also gives them hope and inspiration and motivation to do whatever it is that they wish to do. It doesn't have to be public speaking, but at the end of the day, this is their own goal, right? For them to do what they love and what they care about and still be authentic. And when you're saying authentic, you know, those are the 4 things we can't teach speakers. The 4 things we cannot teach speakers is personality, charisma, authenticity, and integrity. Can't teach that. You either have it or you don't. So if you are able to just be yourself, be you, do you, you know, and you are going to make it in public speaking, in coaching, and motivating, and whatever it is that you want to do. So it is possible.
I'm speechless.
That's impossible. But let me get into the story of how I got into this business.
Yes, please do.
So that'll help you. So take a deep breath.
There's so much to process. It's not just, you know, a lot of times I have conversations with people and they share things and I can process pretty quickly through the emotional side of things, and listening to your story and just the way it connected with mine in certain ways, and things that I've been through as well. It hit some nerves. I'm not going to lie. Like it hit some emotions and it brought some things up, and it was not so much for me. I went through that too. It was someone else who knows what it feels like.
Yeah.
Because that's not common for me to find people who understand what half of those things are like to experience. And so it was more for me a comfort. And I know that sounds odd to a lot of people, but to have someone and be able to talk to someone who understands firsthand what you've been through, the choices you've had to make, the experiences that you've had, and what emotions come along with that, and what life is like after and going through all of that. Like, there's something that happens inside of you that I've truly never experienced before in my life. In my almost 50 years, like that's an experience. To hear you share those things in your story is not something I've ever experienced emotionally in my entire life. And so I appreciate you sharing your story. And I hear people say, you know, me too, and I've been there too, and I've gone through this and that. But to hear you say it, it was different. And there were so many similarities. It was, oh, wow, she really gets it. Like, she really knows what, and more. She knows what it's like to fight for her life and to make choices that nobody would understand and to live through things, to be a victim of things, to be a survivor of things, to be an overcomer of those things, to be a thriver after overcoming, like to walk through all of that. It just, there's a connection people will get. And I truly hope that there are some people who have been looking for a connection like that and found that with you today.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Please continue.
I was speaking all over the world. For about 13 years, I was traveling, jet setting. It was amazing. I became a profiler. So I'm actually a certified behavior analyst, and I go into corporations and teach their salespeople how to close the deal 98% of the time through profiling instead of teaching them sales 101. So I became really known in the corporate world and have made good money and so on. And I'm traveling and having a good time. And after a tour in Europe, first let me start by saying that in January of 2010, I said to my business coach, listen, I would like to impact the lives of 200 million people in 20 to 25 years. And he made me choose a date. So we agreed on the 24th of April, 2025. And he said, why April 24th? I said, well, because it's going to be my birthday and we're going to celebrate two things. That's why. Because I know he expected it to be 1st of January, 2025. But I said no. And in June of 2010, I traveled, in May of 2010, I was traveling Europe. I did a European tour. But before I left for my tour, I had a few people at my house, which are speakers. All my friends are, speakers. And so they were at my house. We were at the pool doing a barbecue, blah, blah, blah. And I'm hearing them talk about not making money. So the conversation, what I'm hearing is like, oh, nobody's paying. They're not paying enough or whatever it was. And I'm in the water, so I don't know what they're talking about. So I said, hey guys, listen, I don't know what you're talking about, but minimum wage in public speaking is $150 a year. And they're like, what? Are you crazy? Some of us make 30. Some of us make 50, 60, 80, 100. That's pushing it. 150. You're out of your mind, Orly. I'm like, okay. And they hate when I say this. You do you, I'll do me. This is what I was saying. And I was afraid in my head. This is what happened in my head, though. In my head, I'm like, thank God I didn't tell them that I tripled that. So that, because in my head, and I love cartoons, by the way, for those of you who like cartoons, there was a bubble coming out of my head playing a role of they're going to take me, drown me in my own pool, take over the house, take my dog, and that's it. That's going to be over for Orly Amor, right? And that's what was going on in my head. I'm not telling them that I make more. There's no way. They cannot even believe I make it, let alone minimum wage. Anyway, so I decided not to say anything. And so right after that, I was in my European tour for speaking and having a great time. I did, I think, 6 or 7 countries. And then I came back to Arlington, Texas, where I was at a conference, a business conference, huge conference. I don't know how many thousands of people attended that. And I'm in the break room for speakers. It's like, some people call it the green room, the break room, whatever, right? And so I'm just standing there having some tea. I just had a long flight. I really just landed the day before and I'm jet lagged, whatever. And I'm standing there and these 3 guys come over to me. So now that you know my story, creepy, right? 3 guys coming just towards you, right? And of course it's speakers because we're in the speaker lounge. And so they're coming over and one of them says to me, aren't you Orly Amor? I said, yeah, do I know you? Sorry, don't remember. So one of them said, no, we've never met before, but we've seen you on the circuit. And I said, oh, okay. I'm in the corporate circuit. So that kind of, rang a bell. But I said, oh, maybe they saw me at one of those conferences. And so we just started talking and networking and we're exchanging business cards and so on. And at one point, one of them says to me, I'm just curious, how did you get this gig? I said, I don't know. I told them what I speak about. They paid me and I'm here. All like if I have 3 heads, you got paid? And I'm like, oh boy, what did I just do? You guys did it? They're like, no, we got our expenses paid, but we didn't get paid. I said, oh no, I got paid and I got my expenses paid. Like, but it was normal. You guys have to understand this. You guys need to understand this part. That was my aha moment. I never knew speakers did not get paid. I have always gotten paid. So I have no clue what they're talking about, right? And I'm like, you guys did it? It's like, and now I'm thinking, oh my God, let me go see the event planner. I need to apologize to her. This is what's going on in my head. I'm like, oh shoot, was I the only one who got paid like that? That's impossible. That's what I'm thinking. Anywho, so they like, well, we want to know how you did that. And jokingly, because you guys need to know that up to that point, I was not coaching. So I was not coaching. I didn't care about coaching. I was like speaking over. There was no way I was going to coach either. So now, they say, well, we want to know how you did that. So jokingly, I said, well, if I tell you, I'm going to have to charge you. But just before I could say, just kidding, they're like, okay, name your price. I'm like, what? Okay, can I get back to you on that? Like, I don't even know what to do first, second, third in coaching. I'll back to you. Give me your card and we'll talk. And I have to go back in. And so that's how I left the conversation. I come back to Florida because that's where I was living at the time. And I call my friends who were by my pool. Those are the people that they're my friends still, right? And so I'm calling them. Hey, I'm back. How's it going? Listen, I'm thinking about coaching speakers on the business side of public speaking and guaranteeing they're going to make $150K their first year. And so each one of them separately said, oh my God, you should totally do this. It's like the Holy Grail. We'll hire you. I'm like, what? Who are you? And what have you done with my friend? Those are the same people who made fun of me, right? And one of them though said, hey, Orly, do you remember your goal for, your impact? Your 200 million people impact. What if you help other speakers get out there and speak and tell you not who cares about how much money they make because they're obviously going to make it, but how many people are they impacting through social media, et cetera, et cetera. What if they told you how many those people are? That would count for your 200 million. So you'll reach that number much faster. And I'm like, I needed a why to coach because that was not in my plan, but you plan, God laughs. That's just the way it is, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I'm a true believer. God has other plans and always laughing at you when you have plans, right?
Oh, yes.
So, I said, oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So I guess I'm going to do this. And so I called back those 3 guys that I met in Arlington. I called them up. Hey, how's it going? Listen, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is exactly, you can't make this shit up. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to be coaching speakers on the business side of public speaking, and I guarantee you'll make $150K your first year in public speaking. So all of them had the same rebuttal. Well, how do you do that? Nobody guarantees anything, And I said, you know what? Fair enough. I'm going to guarantee you the $150K your first year, but I'll hold your hand until you make it. So if you don't make it in the first year and it's going to take you another 6 months or another year, I'll work with you until you make the money. There's no way you don't make that money. And so all 3 of them hired me on the spot. And for the past 10 years or whatever, so one of them makes about $300,000 to $400,000 a year regularly. So 2 of them make $300,000 to $400,000 a year. And one of them made 1.2 million in 20. Now, I'm not ready to work as hard as he does. I'll tell you that. It's not that I haven't made the million, but I didn't make them just from public speaking. He's gay. He's single. He's gorgeous. He's going after the LGBT community all over the world. He knows how to scale the business because I teach you how to scale the business. And so he's doing well, and so I'm like, okay, so we got some good results here. We should continue. And then the word went out. And now I'm not even known at what I really speak about. I'm only known for the business of public speaking. And believe it or not, the first time I ever spoke about the business of public speaking at a real event was in January 2019. Like that's the first time I ever spoke on the business side of public speaking. Never before. Kind of funny, right? You plan, God laughs.
That's amazing. I think it also speaks to the fact that we think we know what we're doing and then God has another plan. And so we do pivot, we do shift, we do change gears. And some things are lucrative, some things are not. Just because something's lucrative doesn't mean it's what you really are supposed to be doing. It just happens that way. And to know, I hear these types of stories often where I wasn't even planning on doing this, but then someone did this. And so I'm like, that to me, can something like that happen to me where that opportunity is just right there and I can take it and run with it? And I realize that happens to such a few number of people.
No.
In that way, because a lot of us are so oblivious to what's being handed to us. We just keep turning away from it, right? Like, it's not that the opportunity is not there.
Right.
It's that we are so focused on our plan and what we're trying to do. And what if I let go? Like, this is even something I've had thoughts in my head about. Like, what if I were to shut down my business? Who's it going to hurt? What's going to matter? What would that give me the opportunity to do? And the question is always, should I really be doing this? Should I not really be doing this? And I've always been that way. And what I learned about it is what I've done has always led me to something else. And I trust it. I do it until the opportunity comes for me to shift. Yet my preface has always been the same, whether I was running an accounting firm that I ran for years, or whether I'm a life and business coach, consultant, mentor, business sidekick, all the things, author, speaker, whatever. It's always been the same. I have a heart for people and I want to help them lessen their stress level, be able to show up authentically in their life, to be who they are, to find a more harmonious way to make things function, whether it was their books in their business or, their foundation of their business or running their household or, all these things. That's always been the same. How I go about doing that can change as often as it wants to. As often as it's going to take God to change it for me to learn all the things I need to learn to get to where I'm meant to be and grow from there and build from there, I'm in. People will ask this question a lot. And I love your take on this in the speaker perspective, because you say you should never speak for free. And one question people ask all the time, and coaches will ask you in their sales pitches or in all different kinds of things, they'll say, if you could do what you're doing right now and you never got paid a cent, would you keep doing it? And they ask that question because they want to check your passion. However, we have to understand that passion doesn't always equal purpose. And sometimes the two are not even connected. And so if you're trying to find your purpose and you don't know if speaking is your purpose or coaching or whatever, it doesn't matter. Try it, see what happens. If we're always trying to find something that makes sense, most often we're going to miss the mark. I would love your take on that question. And maybe there's a better question to ask when it comes to speaking. And when you're trying to figure out your purpose, when you're trying to figure out your calling, when you're trying to figure out, like, is my gift, my purpose, my calling, all these things, where does speaking come into that? Like, what's a good question for us to ask ourselves to see if this is a good thing to step into? Not good thing, the next best thing for us to step into. Let's go that direction.
Sure. So first, I think that the question of, if money was no object and time was no object, would you do this for the rest of your life? Okay. I don't like that question. And I'll tell you why I don't like that question. It's very limiting if you think about it. It's extremely limiting. And so when it's limiting, then you have to make a decision. I would tell you and I would ask you, what fuels your soul? When you get up in the morning, what makes you happy first? Singing, gratitude, meditation, doing what you do every day? Would you really do it every single day for the rest of your life? Do you love what you do? Because they do say that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So when people ask me, when are you going on vacation? I'm like, what is that? I have no idea. Does it exist in the dictionary? And I go look it up because I don't know what a vacation is. I don't have a vacation to take from whatever I'm doing because I'm every day on vacation. How cool is that, right? To live with your purpose is to love what you do. And has there been ups and downs in this business? Absolutely. There is no business that doesn't have those curves, those ups and downs. And here's the thing. It's not about the up and down. We don't want to peak too much because that gets us exhausted from what we do and then we lose interest. The goal is to learn how to do it moderately so the wave is very short and easy. The slopes are easy to come out of, right? There's challenges in everything. Bill Gates, the president, all of these people have challenges every single day. Personally, professionally, they have challenges. So you're no different. And at the end of the day, if you love what you're doing and you're passionate about it and it fuels your soul, makes you happy, that's where you need to be. If it's something that you're struggling with and you're doing it because it brings in the bacon and you can pay for, and provide for your family or pay your bills, that's not the reason to do it. You got to do it because it's bigger than you. There's something to be said about coaching and speaking. And actually, I do not like to call myself a coach. I really like to call myself a mentor. The difference for me from a coach and a mentor is that a mentor has an emotional vested interest in your success. It's not just a transaction. I want to be there until you make it. And I care enough to hold your hand for it. And so that's what I like to call myself. But at the end of the day, to answer your question, is it passion or purpose? It's both. Because once you find your passion, you found your purpose. It fuels your soul. You got to do this. This is what you want to do. But I love what you said a little earlier about this because you said you're an intuitive. And I think we all have that intuition. It's that little nagging voice that actually doesn't shut up. And if you don't listen to it, that's when you're not taking advantage of the opportunities that are placed in front of you. Right? And that's my belief. It's a personal, maybe my opinion. I might be wrong. I might be right. Opinions are opinions, right? They're just opinions. And so take it or leave it. But I think that if you're passionate about what you're doing and you love what you do, then continue doing it, but serve a bigger purpose. It's bigger than you. Whether you like it or not, it's much bigger than you. Took me a while to get that one.
I love that. And I think that's a great place to end this conversation. So I was looking at the time that Orly and I could probably sit and talk for hours on end. I feel like we just got started. I'm so energized about this conversation.
Two little things to say, but it's okay. No worries.
If you have a couple more things you want to share, please do.
Okay. So the first one I want to share is a little story, very, very short and sweet. And that is, and you might have heard it before, but this gentleman wakes up every morning and takes a walk in his neighborhood. And he goes by this house. And on the porch of the house, there's an old man and an old lady that are sitting on their rocking chair. And there's a dog right between them on the floor, whining and crying and whining. It's very pitiful. And so every day he goes and it's the same scenario. An old man and an old lady rocking on their chair and the dog between them are lying on the floor and whining and crying and really, really pitiful. So this goes on for a week. And after a week, he says to himself, if tomorrow I see the same thing, I'm going to ask the lady what's wrong with the dog. So it was the next day he walks by and the dog is on the floor crying and they're just rocking on their chair doing nothing. And he walks up to the lady and goes, excuse me, what's wrong with your dog? She's like, oh, he's lying on a nail. Okay, why doesn't he move? She's like, well, it hurts him enough to complain and moan about it, but not enough to move. And I think that most entrepreneurs have this nail that they're lying on. It's not working out for me. I'm not good enough. This is maybe not the right business. Maybe I should question this. Maybe I should plan. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. Stop that. Get up. Decide for yourself what makes you happy and fuels your soul so that you can continue doing it and be happy about it. And the second thing that I want to share is that there was a big, big convention where there was a guru there that was speaking on stage, and he was showing everybody his cars, his chateau, his, chateau in the south of France, and then a house over here in Malibu, and all these cars and money and people he met, like Sir Richard Branson and all these amazing people. And so this young man saw all this and went up to him and said, I want you to be my mentor. I need you to teach me. I'm willing to pay. The guy said, no, I don't take anybody under my wing. He's like, no, I want you. No, I know I want you. How much is it going to be? And the guy said, no, I don't take anybody under my wing. And so the kid continued until the guy got fed up. The guru said, okay, enough. You really want to do what I do? You really want to learn how I got this? No problem. Meet me on the beach at 5:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. So he meets him on the beach, and the young man is all dressed up, and he has a tie and a suit and beautiful shoes, all shiny. And the guru is there with flip-flops and a t-shirt. Yeah. And he says to the young man, take off your jacket and your tie and your shoes and walk with me. And so now they're walking towards the water. And they get in, and now they're wet until their knees, and they're wet till their thighs, and now they're all the way to the waist, and then also the way to the neck, and now they're like all the way, with water. And the guru takes the young man's head and shoves it under the water and holds it there really, really tight. And so the young man is trying to fight for his life here, and he's holding it a little longer. And a few seconds pass, and he takes the young man's head out of the water, and the young man just gasps for air and goes, and the guru just looks at him and says, when you were underwater, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about my houses and my chateau? Were you thinking about my cars and the money I made, or the people that I met throughout my life? How about that? What were you thinking about? So the young man goes, are you crazy? I was trying to breathe. I was trying to get some air. I was fighting for my life. The guru says, that's right. In order to be where I am today, you got to fight for it like you're fighting for air. You got to invest yourself enough to get here. It's going to take some sacrifice. And if you are willing to fight for it like you're fighting for air, then you will make it to where I am today.
That is such a powerful story. I've never heard that one before. And I think it gives us something to ponder and think about and look at our story and go, in our businesses, have we been willing to fight through those things, or did we give up and move on to the next thing? There's a difference between giving up and moving on when you shouldn't, and you should keep fighting, versus shifting and pivoting and making those changes and stepping out of something that really isn't the right thing. And I think a lot of times people have a hard time deciphering between the two. That discernment can be very challenging. And I think this gives us a great thing to think about and gives us a good space to reflect on where we are, why we're doing what we're doing. And that's heavy and very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Okay, so for anyone who wants to catch the before and after of the podcast on the YouTube channel, you can go over there because there are conversations and topics and stories and things that we are sharing over there that are not here on the podcast. I am so humbled and gracious for your time and for your willingness to share so much with us. There will be links in the description below, along with Orly's bio and her picture and all that good stuff. So ways you can get connected with her. If you guys are interested, Orly mentioned her speakers training boot camp. Orly, how often do you run that boot camp? Because someone might be listening to this podcast 6 months down the road and they might be thinking they missed it.
They didn't miss it because we're doing it every month in Miami at Boa Studios. So it's a real studio where you get your sizzle reel done. You learn how to do some speaking. You get some feedback from people and you get some testimonials. You get your photo shoot done. You get a lot of value. It's 2.5 days, but I think it's really amazing if people have the opportunity to get to Miami and to do that 2.5 days. I think even if you want to see if you can be a speaker, I think going through this boot camp will give you the confidence you need
to keep you moving forward in that direction. I think everyone has a story to share. I believe everyone should speak at something in some fashion to share their story, to positively impact others and inspire others to keep going as well. So thank you again for your time. I hope my listeners will get connected with you. I'm sure there are many people that were able to align well with you and that you are that next step for them in their journey. So thank you again so much.
You're welcome. And if you have a message, somebody's willing to pay for it.